Parent Entrepreneur Power, conversation number 238.
Parent Entrepreneur Power.
Wait, what? Entrepreneur Power!
This is the podcast for parents juggling the tough choices required for success in business while putting family first. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Johnson, and I share the ups and downs and dirty truths of profits and potty training while chatting with successful parent entrepreneurs from all walks of life. Are you powered up? Hey there, Power Parents. MKJ here, and I get to chat with someone I think you're going to want to hang on, because if you've ever had a situation where your partner, your significant other, your spouse is not necessarily as supportive as you'd like, or you've had issues with your relationship related to anything, communication, your business, the kids, whatever you're talking about, then I've got the person you need to listen to. So hang on to your hats. I get to introduce you to Mort Fertel. He is the creator of the Marriage Fitness Program. Hey there, Mort. How you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me on.
You bet. Thank you for joining us because, you know, I usually talk only about business and also relationships as they relate to each other. So I would really love to pick your brain about some subjects that I know my audience struggles with and deals with, and you are the person to do that. You have the expertise, you have the programs, you've talked to many people in marriages and helped them overcome lots of obstacles. So can you give us an idea of that program first? When you talk about the creator of the Marriage Fitness Program, can you just give us a quick overview of what you do?
Sure. So the Marriage Fitness Telebootcamp is it's a self-help program that's designed for people that are in marital crisis, and people from all over the world can do the program. You do it from home. You do it through a few teleconferences, and it gives you sort of step-by-step instructions for how to turn a marital crisis situation into a reconciliation. We deal with people who are trying to save their marriage, or on the brink of divorce, spouse is having an affair, all sorts of unfortunate situations, and the program gives you resources and step-by-step instructions on how to deal with situations like that.
So, Power Parents, even if you may not fit exactly into one of those criteria that Mort outlined, I guarantee you, if you're married, you've had issues and whatever they might be. I don't know any marriage who has never, ever faltered, which has never, ever faltered. Being married 35 years, mine has gone through all kinds of adventures, and we've just basically tried to hang on to the roller coaster and ride them as best we can together. So thank you for that, first off. And then if we could go into one of the issues that I know myself and my audience has dealt with, and I would love your yay or nay as to whether I'm handling this well or not. But let me give you the scenario, and then you kind of take it from there if you can. So,
sure.
My relationship, my husband and I are polar opposites in relation to the way we deal with stress, and also with the way we deal with possibility versus actual facts. So he's a very factual person. He is his profession is a tax accountant. So he deals in mostly absolutes, right? He has to interpret the law, and he has to tell clients whether or not they can claim this on their taxes. And there's a little bit of room for interpretation, definitely. But most of it is, this is the number I'm putting on your return. This is the result you're getting in terms of whether you pay or get a refund. So it's very black and white. Whereas I am much more possibility person and looking at, well, I could do this or I could do that, and this might work. And if I tweak this, it might work. And so I have my head way up in the clouds quite often, and he's down on the ground and basically like holding on to the balloon string, and I'm the balloon, and he's kind of my grounder. But that makes for difficulties sometimes. When I want to do something, he is I wouldn't call him negative, but it feels negative to me, because I'm the one going, well, we could do this and we could do that. And and he's not necessarily saying, no, you can't, but he's saying, oh, but you know what? It really doesn't matter until the money's in the bank. Or, oh, you know what? It doesn't matter until that actually works. What if that doesn't work? So did I explain that well enough? Does that make sense? And you've probably dealt with it.
I'm tracking you. Yep.
Okay, good. And so typically in dealing with those kinds of situations and me being all excited about this particular thing and him bringing me back down to earth, in many ways, that's an amazing gift that he's giving me to help me stay grounded. But in many ways, it really pisses me off. Okay, because I want him to be excited about these amazing things that are around the corner, and he's not. And when he's not excited, it makes me not excited, and I don't like doing that. I want to stay excited, and that motivates me, right? That excitement motivates me to act on those goals and those dreams. So just in a general sense, how do you suggest we approach those two different personalities so that I don't get pissed off and he doesn't get pissed off?
Right. So first of all, I think it depends on how the husband and wife are relating to each other. In other words, if two people husband and wife are working together, that's one possibility. And I know that's probably the scenario for many of the people listening to this. But another possibility is that people have their separate careers. Obviously, one of them, at least in your audience, is an entrepreneur, but the other one might not be. And in that situation, the husband and wife are not necessarily working together, but they are just responsible for and hopefully being supportive of each other's careers. Right? Was that distinction clear?
Yep.
Okay. So it's really a critical distinction, because if it's the former, if you have a husband and wife who are actually working together in the same business, on the same project, so then I think it's important that you really appreciate the differences that you just described and value those differences and realize how important it is that for you, Mary, that there is somebody who's asking those tough, practical questions that kind of bring you down to earth to determine whether or not this is realistic. And if it is realistic, how exactly are we going to go about bringing that dream to reality? Now, that can be a difficult conversation for somebody like you who's up in the clouds and dreaming, but it's an important conversation. I mean, any of us that have ever worked with a dreamer knows that there has to be the sort of practical nuts and bolts kind of person around them. Otherwise, they spend their life dreaming but not really getting anything done.
Yep.
Or the other possibility is they spend their life, creating ideas, but, not really realizing any of them. I mean, look, this dynamic that you described, it describes really my wife and I fairly well also. She is more like you described yourself. And even though I'm professionally speaking nowhere near like the accountant or like what you described your husband, still my mind works in a very linear way, very methodical, very organized, and very detail-oriented.
Right.
And so I cannot tell you over, the years that my wife and I have been married, how many ideas, business ideas, she has had. I mean, ever since she was a child, even before I knew her, like her family is very entrepreneurial, and they're big thinkers, and they're big dreamers, and there's constant energy and ideas spewing all over the place. And one of them, we actually took and made a reality. Now, that never happened in her life prior to being married to me. Actually, I should say two of them. Actually, Marriage Fitness is one, but I don't know if I would say it was her idea, but whatever. There's another one, Reading Buddy Software, which is a speech recognition technology reading software program for children that are struggling with reading. So this was my wife's idea. And I really helped her bring it into reality. And there's no question that she couldn't have done it without me.
Right.
And I couldn't have done it without her.
Right.
I would have never had the idea. I would have never had the dream. I wouldn't have had the vision. So in the first scenario that I mentioned, it's really important to sort of appreciate what the difference is and how much you need those differences. From your husband's perspective, he needs ideas.
Right.
And he needs energy.
Right.
If it wasn't for you, he would probably be pretty boring. and it's unlikely that he would ever venture out to do something different and to take a chance and to jump on an opportunity, because somebody like your husband probably asks so many questions and looks at things from so many different angles that there's like an analysis paralysis.
Right.
It takes a certain level of foolishness to be a successful entrepreneur. I don't mean foolishness like stupidity
No. Yeah.
Foolishness like, in other words, you have to be willing to act without all the information,
Right.
without all of the questions answered. And so I think it's really important, if you're in not only a marriage but a partnership with somebody in a business, that tension between those two personality types, that struggle, while it can be a source of frustration, the important thing is to keep it into perspective and realize you need this other energy. You need this other person. Mm-hmm. And without them, there's no way you would be as successful. Now let's go to the second. I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No. That's good. Go.
Let's go to the second scenario, because it's very different.
Right.
And it's important that people appreciate the distinction. The other scenario is that you have these two personality types. But by the way, you almost always will have these two different personality types because they always marry each other. Right?
Right.
The dreamer never marries the dreamer.
Oh my goodness.
And the accountant never marries the accountant.
Right.
In my work, I'm always dealing with people in marital crisis, and it's always amazing to me how when things fall apart, people always think they're going to, next time they're going to want to marry somebody more like them. And it's really not a very intelligent thought.
Yeah, right.
It's a very impulsive thought,
Right.
But the truth is that they generally, if God forbid the marriage doesn't work, they generally marry somebody very similar to their first spouse. Anyway, so in the second scenario where one spouse is the entrepreneur and the other is not working in the business, so there I think it's important for the one not working in the business to realize that their role is not a business partner's role. Their role is to be a husband or to be a wife. Mm-hmm. And the role of a husband and a wife is to be supportive and loving. And to be supportive and loving, and to that means to give your spouse what they need emotionally to be fulfilled in their marriage while they're running their business. It's not your job to do their taxes. It's not your job to solve their problems. It's not your job to be their consultant or to give them advice. And if you're dealing with these two different personalities and you're doing that, then you're creating stress in the relationship that might be really unnecessary, because your spouse is not necessarily open to or doesn't necessarily want that help that you're offering. And so you have to restrain yourself and stay out of that role, and instead just be the supportive and loving. So in the example that you gave with you and your husband, like I would recommend, I don't know if you and your husband actually work together or you're an entrepreneur and he does something else, but let's for discussion purposes assume that he does something else. Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, I would recommend to your husband, when you come to him with these dreams and these ideas, he should get excited with you. Mm-hmm. He should engage you in that conversation, ask you about the idea. Why do you think it's a great idea? Express interest in the idea. Ask questions about the idea, not challenging questions like this is what's wrong with it, but questions that show genuine interest, and share in your joy and in your excitement for the idea. It's somebody else's role in your business to bring you down to earth with the difficult practical questions.
Exactly. Yes, it is my operator's job to do that. I'm the owner
Okay?
of the
Right.
business. I'm the CEO. I'm the dreamer, and I have an implementer or operator on
Exactly.
the other side to be practical.
That's right.
Yeah, and so you're right in terms of a spouse's role. Yes, support is all I crave. That's it.
Right.
Just to be heard, just to have
Yep.
someone in my corner going, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. How is it going to
Yep.
work? What do you think
Yep.
about it?" And help me to progress in my excitement and maybe eventually come into how to implement, but really more just be my champion.
Yep.
That's it.
That's right. I'll give you a personal example. I mean, this kind of thing has gone on for years and years in my marriage. But my wife, right now, not surprisingly, it's usually the case, has an idea. She always does that she's really fired up about, and she's been reading books about it. And every day I come home, she's got something else to share about it, and it's food related. So she's got another recipe, and she's, the dinner that she made relates. I mean, she's just really immersed in it, and we're thinking about what to do with it, but it's not like we're actually working together yet on it. It's more just an idea. And so I'm really trying, and I think I'm doing a decent job of engaging her in the fun of the idea. I taste all the different recipes, and I tell her what I think. I've actually read some of the books that she's reading because I want to know what she's interested in, and I've shared with her what I thought of some of what I was reading. Sometimes we stay up late and have conversations about how it would go and the way it would work. And, no commitments. I'm not saying that we're doing anything. I'm not saying that I'm doing anything. But she's excited about this, and I'm just engaging her in an exciting conversation.
Yeah. So let's take that in either of those two scenarios. Let's just take the second one. So where the one spouse is actually the entrepreneur and really the other person does something totally different and the role is really just support me, please, just support me. If let's say my husband and I and you can't talk to him, right? So he's not coming to you for help. I'm coming to you for help going, "Okay, Mart, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm really every time I talk about this, he just is a downer, doesn't support me. I feel like he doesn't agree. He doesn't think I'm at all good at what I do, all those things." How can I communicate to him what I need without accusing him, putting him down, all those things that usually end up in fights, quote unquote. But yet, not that I'm going to actually have what I want because I can't change this other person, but how can I communicate it in a way that hopefully gets across what it is I need in this relationship so that he at least is a little clearer in what I expect from my relationship?
I'll give you a few very practical suggestions. Okay, number one is heed the advice of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. In other words, be an example. Just like you need love and support as it relates to your career, so too your husband needs love and support as it relates to his career. Take an active interest in what he's doing, but do it not in the judgmental way of you being like his advisor, his consultant, and you evaluating everything he's doing. Just express an interest, be loving, be supportive. Create a culture in your marriage where that's what we do as it relates to each other's careers. That's just the way it is. Right. Every marriage has a culture, just like in our society we have a culture, right? And there are cultural norms and mores, right? 100 years ago, nobody would be, or maybe 200 years ago, nobody would be caught dead walking outside in shorts.
Right.
It's just not what was done.
Right.
And since it wasn't what was done, we didn't do it either because you'd be seen as an oddball, right? Today, if it's warm out, what's the big deal? Everybody walks outside in shorts, right? So too in our marriage, there is a cultural norm in the marriage. Now, the good news about the norm in the marriage is that there's only two people contributing to it. So you, whoever you are, have a tremendous influence or impact on that culture.
Right.
Make it a culture. So getting back to your question, make it a culture where we are supportive about each other's career in a very loving, non-judgmental way. So that's the first thing.
Amen.
Show him what it is that you want him to do. The second thing is catch him doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to be experts in our marriage at catching our spouse doing things wrong. You know, when I ask people, what's wrong with your spouse, I get a huge list. When I ask them what's right with their spouse, I stump them. Mm-hmm. But that's crazy because there's lots of things that's right with your spouse. You know, it's just the frequency of you being exposed to them has numbed you to what you otherwise would have noticed. And by the way, what you did notice when you fell in love, that's why you fell in love.
Yes.
So catch him doing it right. He must sometimes be somewhat supportive and loving regarding your career. And when he gets it right even a little bit, make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Compliment him on it. Let him know how much you noticed it, how much you appreciate it. And so by emphasizing the positive, I mean, people like that kind of acknowledgement, they're much more likely to deliver it again. Whereas if you try to accomplish the same thing by noticing what he does wrong and telling him how to do it right, he'll never get that behavior because if you told him to do it, he won't do it. Right? I mean, that's just the way it works. But if you catch him doing it on his own initiative, now he feels like a hero, and he's got, it's a layup. He can do it again.
Yes. Definitely. I agree 100%. And power parents, those of you listening, if you're rolling your eyes at that going, oh, you know what, but he never does this or she never does that, I got to stop you right there and go, all right, listen to me. No matter what, you married this person for a reason. And as long as they are not an abuser, addicted to drugs, substances, or anything else, and they're not abusive in any way, then you married a decent person. So go with that and find the decent and find the positive and work with the positive, because you're right, Mort. It starts with us. If you're right, the 50-50 culture, we have 50% influence on this culture. Nowhere else in our lives, except maybe our kids, do we have that.
That's right.
And so what an amazing thing. Yes. And it all comes from, the old saying, do unto others as you would have them do to you. So,
that's right.
Wow.
I'll tell you a great story if you don't mind. We have a minute?
Yeah, just a minute.
There's a story of a guy who comes to a new town. He seeks out the local sage. He says, I'm thinking about moving here. Can you tell me what are the people that are here like? So the sage says, well, what are the people like where you come from? So, he said, where I come from, the people are horrible, mean, violent, jealous. So the sage says, well, people are pretty much the same here. So about a month later, a different man comes to the same town and seeks out the same sage and says, I'm thinking about moving here. Can you tell me, what are the people like? So the sage says, well, tell me, what are people like where you come from? So the man says, where I come from, the people are wonderful, kind, loving, generous, the best. The sage says, well, people are pretty much the same here. It's a powerful story, right?
It is.
And it's really true. People are not as they are. They are as we are.
Yes.
Relationships are a system. It's like if you go into a chemistry lab and you take two chemicals and you mix them together, you get, you take A and B and you mix it together, you get C. If you want to do the experiment again and get a different outcome, you do not have to change both chemicals. You only have to change one.
Right.
And it's like that way in a relationship. We have more power than we think.
That is
more
right.
Influence.
Thank you so much. That is an amazing story and lesson to end our conversation on. I so appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom. Again, please, power parents, you know what we're talking about. You know where to find Mort. Definitely the marriage fitness program, Mort Fertel. I will have all the links in the show notes. You want to give us a link real quick, Mort, so that people can find you?
Sure, mortfertel.com.
FERTEL.com. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. I know we'll be chatting soon.
You're welcome.
To get powered up for your day, just go to parentepower.com and listen to the over 200 episodes we have so far with amazing entrepreneurs just like you. It might just help you feel like a grown-up again.